Okay, now that we've reviewed the AFNI proc.py command, let's actually run it. And while it starts executing, we can talk about some other details um, that people might want to understand when they're running an AFNI proc command. So again, you have the Uber version and the corresponding Pythonic version. You can run whichever one of them you want to. It's not too important, but again, this is the only distinction, this Pythonic option. So if I just do tcsh script 5, either form of them, it will generate a proc script and execute it, and so that will perform the single subject analysis right here in this window. So that's off and running. And you notice uh, at the top of it actually, you see the output from running afniproc.py. This is running afniproc.py here. That's the text output where it generates the proc script, proc.subjectID, and suggests how to run the proc script. This is tshow syntax, and if your login shell is bash, you might do this to execute it. We'll come back to that, but for now, I'll just let it run. Well, but let me start talking about some details in terms of AFNI So for now, let's briefly let's talk about what it means to use these XEF options. So basically, we're just doing tcsh on proc.ft, but with some extra stuff. The first thing is this -x option. That is really nice to have because what that does is it tells the shell, it tells the T shell that when it runs the proc script, proc.ft, it should echo the commands that it's running before executing them. And that means, for example, here, you don't just see 3D copy is running, 3D tcat is running, 3D tcat, 3D tcat. Before them, you actually see the command. So without that X option, you wouldn't know that 3D tcat is producing this output, except for, that's what the text says. But, you know, here it does all this stuff here. Oh, now we can see, yes, that's the output from radio correlate, where we wanted to do the local correlations at the end of the tcat block. That's right, now we remember. So, but without the X option, you wouldn't necessarily remember that it's actually running radio correlate. Why is there any merge and blur here? What is this full with that half max? But when you realize that it's running radio correlate, then it makes sense. So that's what the X option is for. The E option says to terminate the execution if there are any errors. The F is a less important one. It just says don't run your home.cshrc file again for this. So we run the proc script. Then we have this extra stuff, either in T shell or bash syntax. And basically what they are saying is pipe both standard output and standard error. Those are two file streams that would go to the same terminal window, but they are different file streams. Of course, you can guess standard error is for more error or warning messages. And here's the bash version just saying send standard error to be the same as standard output, and then pipe that. And then, so where are we sending all the text output? We're sending it to the T program. And what the T program does is like text goes in, it's like a plumber's T. Water comes in one way and it goes out two ways. So the text output from this execution goes to the T program and it goes out to two places from there. One place is to a text file. So all the text output that you're seeing on the screen here is being stored. I'll go back up, find our command. It's being stored in output.proc.ft. If I type ls here, I see that file. And if I type less on that file, I'm seeing all the same output that I see in the other terminal window. But now it's saved. I can come back and look at this later. or if there are questions about the output, you can mail that to me or something like that. So one of the places T sends it is to this text file, and the other place is, well, back to the screen, so that in the terminal window I can still see the output. So I'll just hit enter. I'll just let this screen keep scrolling. You see it's doing 3D alineate down here. We'll let it do its thing. Now while that is running, you don't have to do this stuff. You can just watch. But I'm going to give a little more background on running AFNI proc. So for example, let me just run. I'm going to copy and edit one of these commands. I'll just do the simple one. I'm going to copy the simple to ss.test, and I will edit that file. So AFNI open -e ss.test. Again, you don't have to do that. So this is just a simple file, and it's going to write a proc script. The thing I wanted to mention right here is that it doesn't have a -execute option. So what's the effect of having that execute option? Well, let me be more clear. Let me copy so5.pythonic to ss.test. That's more useful. So these two files are now identical. Now let's edit ss.test there. So here I'm going to change the subject ID to be subj.test, just so that the proc script has a different name. And then I'm going to remove the execute option, where I'll just comment it out here. And now let me, you don't have to do this again, I'm just going to save it and run it. So it's this exact same command without execute and with a slightly different subject ID. So when I tcsh ss.test, this is what it does. This is the output we were looking at before, and now all it's done, I'll do ls-ltr again, is it's created proc.ft.test instead of proc.ft. And then it stopped. It's not running the analysis, it just created the proc script. So that's kind of the basic, the default, well, that's the main AFNI proc behavior, and then that extra execute option is just an add-on to say, okay, now that you've created, please effectively run this command yourself, which is what it does. It just runs this command in the background. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Another thing, I wanted to look at a couple of common errors when people generate procs or try to run AFNI proc. So I'll leave the execute off. I'm going to delete the proc script for the moment. Again, you don't have to be doing this, but I'll remove and I'll just copy and paste to make sure I get the right one. The test is the one we don't care about. But let me just remove that so I can rerun this. Otherwise, AFNI proc will complain that the proc script already exists. And one thing I wanted to mention is what happens when you have a space after one of these backslashes. So let me come right here, and before the volreg align to or after the align ops AEA, I'm going to add a couple spaces and save it. So looking at the proc script, I can't tell that there are spaces here unless my editor, which it looks like it is warning me a little bit. This looks like a purple backslash while the rest are black, but normally you won't be able to see that. So what would happen if I run if I do tcsh ss.test now? What is it going to do? Well, first of all, it ran, so it created proc.ft.test. So I may think, oh, that's great, let's execute it. But what is this? This little whining down at the bottom, command not found. That's very important. Whenever you see command not found, it suggests something like spaces after a backslash, or that you've just mistyped a command. But This is clearly an AFNI proc option, and it's saying command not found. Well, if we look for this option in there and we see it, volreg aligned to is right here, what that says is this is not an AFNI proc error, this is a shell error. The shell is saying it doesn't know what command this is. Like if I want to type ls, I type ls. But if I type ls and hit enter, this shell says, hey, I don't know what command you just typed. There's no program with that name. So that's the shell complaining. When it says that about an option in my script, that means the shell sees this as the beginning of a command, which means the prior line is the end of the previous command. So that means the shell thinks that this is the whole AFNI proc command, which is to say it's not seeing the backslash as a line continuation character. So there are probably spaces or tabs or something after it. So whenever you see command not found, go look at the thing it's complaining about and look on the previous line to see if there's something wrong, which we can do and we can fix here. But instead of fixing it, I'm actually going to test it with a different method. So, so we know there's a problem in ss.test. There's an AFNI program called file tool, which we can use to look for problems, bad characters or spaces after backslashes, things like that. So we can run filetool-test-infile ss.test and see what file tool thinks of the script. Oh, and it's not happy. It says that there's a bad backslash line on line 25. So it's finding spaces after a final backslash. So you can actually tell file tool to fix it. If we give it if we add a prefix option onto here, it will create a new file where it's fixed. Or since we're in the editor, we can just say, oh, there are spaces there. I'll remove the spaces and save it. And now, if I run file tool again, it's happy. So that's one common error I wanted to mention. And again, I'm going to remove that result. Be careful when you run the remove command. If you make a mistake, the file may be gone forever. If you have a wildcard in here, life gets rough. So another common mistake is with wildcards. So in this directory, if I type ls on ft, we see all of this stuff. If I echo, or I'll just ls-l on ft/ft star, well, let's get the EPI, ft_EPI star.head. This refers to the 3 API datasets. So this wildcard pattern could be used to specify them to AFNI proc. So for example, in here, if I get rid of these 2 lines, and I'll just forget the variable names. So let's say dsets are ft/ft star ft_EPI star or question mark is okay here, whatever. Star.head. This is okay. This should generate the same result. And if I save that and run it, I can see that it does actually. So if I do, right now I do tcsh again on ss.test, it generates a proc script. If I look at this proc script, and one thing that's in these proc scripts, at the very end, I'm in less. I'm going to type capital G to go to the very end of the file. It tells you the command that was used to generate it. And in that command, you see -dsets ft_EPI1, run 2, and run 3.head. So it actually grabbed all of these. So here we just said -dsets this stuff. But remember, the shell, if we echo that wildcard, the shell will expand the wildcard to any files that match the wildcard. So as far as AFNI proc is concerned, you didn't type an asterisk here, you typed all this. AFNI proc doesn't see this asterisk because it's not in quotes or anything. AFNI proc sees those 3 file names because the shell will expand the wildcard first. So fantastic. So I'm going to delete that again. We see how to use this with a wildcard. But what if we make a mistake? So let me put this wildcard character. I'll put it in the wrong spot. ft underscore star EPI plus a ridge. That's not correct because it doesn't have to run R1, R2, R3. There are 3 run indices. What happens now? Or if I just had some other typo in there, who knows? What happens when we run ss.test now? AFNI proc, no match. Wow, that's not helpful. What does this even mean? This is another very important error. Command not found, because it's a shell error. Command not found was a shell error. No match is a shell error. It's the T shell telling you that there's some wildcard that it doesn't know what to do with. It's not matching any existing files. So it's not an error from AFNI proc because AFNI proc.py is not even running. It's telling you you're attempting to run this, but I'm not running it because you've got a wildcard that isn't matching any files on the system. So then you have to note, okay, where did I use any wildcards? Well, here I have wildcards. Does this work? And one thing you can do to test that it works is you can just copy and paste the stuff. And I've just typed ls-l on that. And oh, ls says there's no match too. Well, let me fix that. I see that the wildcard's in the wrong spot. I'll stick it here. Oh, now it matches. So now I can put this back into my script, either copy and paste or type it in, whatever you want. And then the script is happy. Now when we run it, it should work. Okay, so those are 2 common errors that we see when running a script that don't really have anything to do with the AFNI program you're executing. One is the no match problem if there's a bad wildcard, and one is the command not found, which is common if the line continuation characters are messed up. I don't know where the command not found went, but it's up there somewhere. Here we go. Anyway, any questions about that? No, great. Okay, so I'm going to stop this recording right now, and then I see my AFNI proc.py command is my analysis is finished, my single subject analysis, telling me to go look at the QC results under FT results, the quality control for subject FT, and it's a web page. So I can open this with Google Chrome or Firefox, or just say have AFNI open, look at a web browser. But we'll get back to that in the next video then.